value in anything, just hopefully be more engaged. And a lot of things would make sense about some narrative to go along with it. So anyway, this is kindergarten and grade 1. And if you just look at some of the highlighted terms here, we're talking about, please everybody again, everyone, turn your shoes around and head up. You see that even talking about kindergarten and grade 1, obviously the guys in sport adults are talking about digital tools. They're talking about other media, again, and item 3, number, Emily, as you may. Other media for grades 2. Here again, use information, words in print or digital text. And then of course, look at the second, we're all second graders. Know and use various text formats. And then it says obviously electronic menus and icons to locate information in text. Grade 2 continued again. Digital tools mentioned, other media, digital. It goes on and on. We right now, we just got, here, look at this, they're actually talking about students in 3rd grade using sidebars and hyperlinks in the creation of their work. Also keyboarding skills, they talk about developing that in 3rd grade. Diverse media, again. What we're talking about is having students at a point where they can engage in the curriculum, that they can begin even as early as 3rd grade to start to discriminate between quality research and basically garbage. Again, grade 4, we're talking about them using graphs, diagrams, timelines, etc., all of which can be done through different software. And grade 4 continued, but I see you get the point, digital sources, so forth. So those are just a few of the points that are brought up here in the Common Core State Standards. So these are skills that our students do need, and the whole point here, again, in this paradigm shift is, what we've heard from current employers is, yes, they've got a diploma, they don't know how to think. And that's what we're really talking about, how to engage our students to, if a problem is presented to them, how do they go about solving that problem? And it involves finding the appropriate resources, maybe doing some research with some guidance from teachers, and rather than just have an equation put in front of them, say solve the equation. If any of you see any PARC sample assessments, it scares most of us to death, because kids aren't given an equation that says solve for X. They're given a paragraph of information, and then they first of all have to figure out how to write that into an algebraic equation. So that's the type of skills we're talking about, and that's where this 21st century learning comes in. I guess Tom mentioned earlier, one of the first things we did was, and I know I talked about this last year, was you can't really talk about curriculum without talking about the means by which it's going to be conveyed and taught. That involves not only textbooks to some extent, but also other media, a lot of which involves technology. So these are the changes we made over the year, and where Brian actually is on the Curriculum Council now, reports out on a regular basis. And the Technology Committee, there are about 5-6 people from Curriculum Council also serve on the Technology Committee.
Can we comment on this?
Sure.
The Republican.
So it was actually interesting when I first came on board. Naturally, of course, I went to the Tech Committee and wanted to be a part of that. And it was interesting the conversations that would happen where the people on the Technology Committee were the technicians in the district and then some teachers that were tech savvy. But the decisions that were being made within that committee, when you actually heard what they were talking about, they were making an impact on what kind of technology would actually be within the classroom.
going to hear a lot of talk about digital natives, digital immigrants. I sent some articles, photo articles to you. Again, the paradigm shift in how students learn. But I'm sorry, I couldn't ask them to go to this thing. Look at the very beginning and stuff. In these places,
Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? The tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised or lowered, raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point of the revenue, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics.
I would venture to say, anybody ever sit in a class similar to this in their life?
Yeah.
So, as you see, did those students appear to be engaged? No. So, again, I apologize. This was just kind of a little comic relief. But anyway, this leads into what we were talking about, the paradigm shift in how students learn, and I think Anna Hoy will speak to that.
Okay. I'm Anna. I'm the principal at Lincoln Elementary School, and I've also served on the technology committee. It's been an exciting thing to be part of. But just to tell you a little bit how I learn, before I get into why I would put kind of myself behind this initiative, is I'm a bigger systems thinker. So as a principal, I'm thinking about the students get the end result, but what can I do to help our teachers, and then what do I need from the district office to help me help our teachers to get to the students. So it's kind of like that flow of information and the flow of resources. I'm a big proponent of the response to instruction movement, and I felt like if the district was going to take on an initiative that interrupted that, then I was going to be the one to stop it. I'll be quite honest. These are like true confessions of the principal at Lincoln.
Nice of you to bring up.
Yeah, I know. So I went to, I did the Apple visit, and I just asked questions until I could understand best how technology fits with the response to instruction, RTI system. And once I can get past that, then and could see that vision, then I could see how to get the resources to my teachers and then to the students, and then have a bigger impact on learning. So all of my good questions were answered. I felt very like, okay, I can now get behind this and help in any way that I can. What I'm talking about here is with 21st century learning is just kind of what our clip was an example of, that the information used to come from the teacher had all the information, or all that we knew they had, and then they would just give it out and deliver that to the students. The students would take notes or consume that information the best that they could. And now we're talking so differently the way our children and my own children learn, and the students in our classrooms, that they know the information is out there and they're eager to go get it. They just need to know what different ways they can do that. And sometimes it's left up to how comfortable the teacher or the principal is in letting them do that, when in reality, if they're not in our schools, they're still going out to get that information. So there are skills that we can teach our students to better get that information, to analyze that information. So I don't want you to feel like, or anyone to feel like, the devices, it's going to be fun to play on, or the students, to feel like they're going to be fun to play on and entertaining, and then from my perspective, maybe we'll have less behaviors to deal with. that's kind of when I started in on the technology committee. That's kind of like, is this all we're doing, is giving our kids like a great game to play on that's web-based? Because then I can't get behind, that's not good, the instruction, the best instruction we can get our students. But really what I've figured out and what I've learned from the people that I've worked with on technology is that this is about giving our students skills, problem-solving skills, and we talk a lot about Bloom's taxonomy. I don't think it made it into the slideshow because we didn't want to get too crazy for you, but about moving up the ladder of Bloom's taxonomy on what kind of information, what do we do with the information that we get. And there's so much information coming out at us. It used to be reciting dates and people and times and places, and now we're analyzing why events happened in our history, or why things happened in our science classes, or why the EA makes the long E sound. I mean, right? That we want our students to think deeper about things, not just wider about things. So this move to the 21st century learner is also will necessitate a 21st century teacher. And I felt like the technology group that we served on, we did end up talking about curriculum 90% of the time, and 10% of the time about what kind of technology or devices we're using to get there. My passion is the curriculum. My passion is how we can help, how I can support teachers getting that curriculum into students' hands, interactive, not the passive engagement, but the active engagement. And I really feel like our students are already tuned in to this kind of engagement. If we changed what kind of information they're getting and what to do with that information, then we talk about post-secondary learners in our jobs and offices being problem solvers, problem analyzers. If a teacher comes and applies for a job, I want to know what they can do with the data, not tell me what the data is, right? I want them to be able to analyze that data and make hypotheses and try new variables, changing variables. So that's what I want to teach our students also. And I felt like the shift to talking about curriculum and how students learn is more important to me than any of the devices or any of the technology part that you'll hear about, because really we're not talking much about that today at all. We're talking really about how students learn, how we can support our teachers, getting them that information, and then in the end, what kind of learners are we developing, those problem analyzers. Do you want me to explain what that is?
Sure.
This is, this was also learning for me, because I couldn't figure out how our youngest little people would use these devices to help in their learning. So I thought there would be no hands-on manipulatives, no paper and pencil, it would just be a device, and we would ask all of our littlest people who are pressing things all the time to figure something out on there. That made me a bit petrified, and probably some of our teachers too, to think about it. But this student is responding on a worksheet, and he's got the hands-on, the manipulatives up there, probably for math, so that if he needed to count things out, he can do that. And then on his device there to the right of him, picture representation of it. So this picture right here takes you through the picture representation of math, the physical representation of math, and the paper pencil. And so basically, we're getting our kiddos in this one picture to do multiple sensory learning, which we've been working on for a long time. We try and get visual and kinesthetic and oral learners all the time engaged. This is a perfect picture of getting all that done in one fell swoop, instead of making all those materials for kiddos to learn from. Anne.
Hi, my name is Ann Schultz. I'm a science teacher at DeKalb High School, and I think I'm going to talk about from the science perspective, because we are on the cusp of something really exciting, in my opinion. You've probably heard a little bit about the next generation science standards. A little over a year ago, I started hearing information about it, and it is a shift in how students learn. So if we take what Anna just mentioned and making the students in charge of their learning, that's where this is heading. All right. a book called The Framework for K-12 Science Education came out by the National Resource Council that was looking at the fact that we need to change how students learn, and that by getting them engaged and having them run their own experiments, they will do a much better job at learning. I heard that at the conference, the sage on the stage, and I know I've been guilty of that in the past. I stand there and I dispense information. I've been wanting to teach inquiry since I started teaching in 1990. I didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to do it. I recently got a master's degree on inquiry-based learning, and I'm finished up right at the time the next generation science standards are coming out. Hopefully they'll be adopted in the fall by the Illinois State Board of Education. And it's exciting stuff, because instead of just presenting students with information, as was mentioned earlier, now we're going to have students doing inquiry. Students are going to come up with their own questions to investigate. They're going to come up maybe early on with some guided inquiry where the teacher helps them develop their procedure and then help them with gaining data. But eventually the goal is students will have some background information, they'll develop a question. Once they develop that question, they come up with a set procedure and they do the investigation, they gather the data, and then they analyze and reflect on what that data means. So instead of just saying the answer is, the cell division is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, instead they can come up with an example that demonstrates, when you're looking at skin cancer, what part of mitosis or cell division is impacting that. On top of that, the shift is that you're not going to see the common type of explanation of learning where it's list this, define this, give examples of this. Instead, with these new standards, what we're looking at is build a model, design, construct. And so it really changes what students are doing in the classroom. It also means that the teacher is no longer the dispenser of information. Not entirely. We're still going to need to be there to do that stuff, but on the same token, learn how to be facilitators. And this is a place where we're going to need some professional development, because if we want students to learn how to do their own inquiry, we need to learn to guide students opposed to telling them if they have the right answer or not. Learning how to ask them questions to question what their procedure is, what they're trying to examine. And then when they put their final product together, then this final product, which then can use the technology of either using application of models showing a system of, say, how a disease pathogen runs through a population, or if they wanted to use probe software to gain readings to measure oxygen or to measure CO2 or pH levels, then they can use that technology as well to demonstrate what they're doing. I find it very exciting because in addition to this piece here, then we can get our students to do presentations, not just for the teacher and turn it in for a grade, but the concept with NextGen is present to the community. Whether that's the whole classroom and students do peer reviewing, or maybe bringing students here to the board and doing a presentation for you and showing what they are doing in the classroom that's significant, or take it out into a larger community and say, I use the example of my human anatomy classes. If my kids are investigating different aspects of health, I'm looking at having my students look at the use of sunscreens and good sunscreens, having them look at the influence of lactose intolerance, looking at heart rate and exercise. When they come up with a presentation, whether it's something, whether it's a Prezi or it's something else, then they can use that technology and present it to community members who come to, say, a health fair. And they want to know what that health fair, they want to gain information at health fair from the students. So it becomes a much bigger picture than just, I'm going to turn this in for a grade. It becomes about learning and applying it. And with the inquiry-based learning, we can go from a guided inquiry, because even as teachers, we're going to have to learn how to do this, and the students are going to have to learn how to do this, how to develop a lesson, to open inquiry where the kids just come up on their own and come up with their own question. It's very exciting, but it's going to need some support in order to be successful. And to come across, I'm sorry, I just kind of dropped off there, so. So. I don't know who's next, so I'm
I
sorry.
think that's me.
That's you?
Okay, all of you, my name is Roger Christensen. I'm an 8th grade science teacher at Rosette. And in front of you, you have a device. It's called, it's a smart response clicker. You just turn those on. In the top left-hand corner, click and hold the button for a little bit, and then it should come up with a screen. Top left-hand corner, right up there. Okay. And then if it says Fleming, go ahead and click join Fleming. If it doesn't, if it says Mr. C's class, which some of you might, then click on Find Classes. So you'll scroll down until it says Find Classes. Click on that, and it'll run through a little cycle. And then eventually Fleming will come up. Oh, you're all set. It'll come up, it'll say question 1, and then you can answer A through D. The question is on the board. Would you guys like me to read that to you? For those of you who didn't read your glasses. Carol and Dory are in the 5th grade and very adept with technology. They've grown up playing virtual chess games on the internet while simultaneously watching TV and completing your homework. Carol and Dory would be considered A, digital multitaskers, B, digital immigrants, C, avatars, or D, digital natives. So go ahead and put in your A, B, C, or D, and then you can click on Finish. And let's see here. Looks like 24 of 25 students have answered. Somebody here hasn't hit Finish yet. The one that's turned on.
Hit enter.
And then hit enter on Finish. Here we go. We found our, no, we didn't find our 24. Okay.
Oh, well.
Well, since we're not logged in, normally in a classroom, the students would log in and they have a number that they put in. So I would know exactly who hasn't finished yet, so I can go over and say, hey, Johnny, you need to finish or you need to answer the question. So Denise, if you could show our results. Ooh, wow. I'm guessing that those of you who answered D are all the board members that did their homework and read the articles that were sent out. And the rest of them are people that really don't know. So, but I mean, digital natives, they're the students we're teaching now. They have grown up with digital devices around them all the time. They're the ones that are watching TV while they're doing their homework, listening to music, texting, and instant messaging their friends. Their brains are wired differently. Because of all this technology, it's made their brains to be able to multitask. But in order for them to learn, they have to get this information from several different places. And that's what we're trying to teach. Most of us in this room, we didn't grow up in that era. I mean, I think somebody brought up, they had their Pong and their Atari, but that's not really the same thing. They don't have all this information coming in from so many different areas. In a classroom setting with this particular device, what I might do, since half the class didn't know what the answer was, this half of the class, you guys are fine. You guys go on with the rest of the lesson. I'll take this other half of the class and we'll get into the concept a little bit more. It shrinks our class size down a little bit. It makes it so that we can concentrate on the ones that really need the extra attention, and the ones that can move on and go further and further and further and further on their own, they can. And they can dig deeper. They can go into the analyzing portion, as Anna had talked about. They can get into those more critical thinking.
I was going to say, it helps facilitate differentiation within the classroom.
Yeah. So, I think that's about all. Oh, what else? Here we go. So as you know, as you look at the presentation we've come up with, this is kind of, you know, as we created it, it kind of takes into mind some of the lessons that the students might have. It can be interactive. It has the multimedia, the visual that the students are used to, the things that they pull from. Back in December, I got a grant. It's summer, my brain's off. I got a grant for 30 devices for my classroom. And it took a while before I was able to start to get to use them, get to know them. You know, it took a lot of professional development on my own time using atomic learning and things like that. And then Carla Pavian, the other 8th grade science teacher at Rosette, and she and I started collaborating on some lessons, and we created lessons for the students. And we've got some pictures here of the students engaged in the lessons. And they have the multimedia portion. They have a hands-on activity. The kids still do the labs. They go and they do their labs, and they use the computer as their tool to communicate with us as well. You'll notice that, you know, in one picture we've got a kid reaching across the table helping another student. I'm not sure if that was a technology problem or if he was actually helping them with the work, but the collaboration that they have, they don't just, you know, some people might think that you sit and the kids stare at a computer, but no, they're interacting with others. They're able to actually interact not just with their classmates too. They can interact classroom next door. They can interact with students at Huntley, students in another country, do the same lessons, and that, you know, so that it's not just them sitting at the computers. So we thought we'd show you a few pictures of what happened in the classroom. Any questions about any of this?
Just a couple comments. I attended one of Roger's classes, and I mean, it was fascinating. When you walked in, all the activity, all the noise, all the just kids running around. But then when you actually looked, it was wild watching them with their Chromebooks or whatever it was, whatever device it was, doing the science experiment. And that he had various hands-on things that they share. But from the, what you call it, pace-based learning? Different. Okay, there we go. So some kids were accelerating at a faster pace, so they had access to the tools they need. They got that piece done and moved on. Other kids that were slower were still working through the part, but by the time they needed the hands-on, they'd get up, they'd grab it. They were interacting with each other across the table. And at first what I thought was chaos, when I actually started looking around, these kids were absolutely engaged in that lesson plan because they had a device where they're reaching out to the internet, they're finding out more information they need in order to complete the task that he had. He had the hands-on piece that was coming into the lesson, but the engagement level, I mean, I left that classroom jazzed because it was just an exciting place to be. And a lot of it was the lesson plan the project came up with for that technology piece that the kids, with whom they're familiar, could help engage in that lesson plan.
And that lesson plan was basically from the Apple visit that we did. They kind of gave us a bunch of ideas of things that they do when they do their professional development for their teachers that go in. And so I just kind of grabbed all those things that they're using and throw them into a lesson that, well, didn't throw them into a lesson. It took a little bit of time to develop. So.
Did they do it a lot quicker than Jim and I did ours at the Apple?
Yeah.
I just have to say, one of our sons has been fortunate enough to have Roger. I'm not surprised that you're the one leading this charge. And he's not going to toot his own horn, but you have to know. How many kids were at the science fair this year? We're talking about interactive science, so not just reading out of a book or watching him draw on the board. How many science exhibits did you have this year?
We had 114, I believe.
Compared to, say, 4 years ago?
4 years ago, probably about, what do you think?
It was
Maybe
close
half
at
of
the
that?
beginning. We had
We started out with 10.
18 kids and 10 projects our first year that we did.
So my point is, the work he's doing at Rosette goes well beyond this. Well done. And if you ever want any real entertainment, get a big cup of coffee and sit outside the building on the morning the kids have to deliver their Rube Goldberg project. You know, they're to give their speech on their Rube Goldberg project at Rosette. It is a blast to watch these kids get out of these minivans carrying these things with all this stuff, and inevitably So, well done on technology, Roger, but well done on everything.
Well, thank you, Tracy. And we'll actually, a little bit later on, we'll talk a little bit more about those projects and the science fair and how that might change a little bit as well.
And I add to that, because Roger doesn't toot his own horn enough. Carl and Roger had this all online, so they had a student that was out for a good week and a half, so she would have missed this entire thing. But this lesson was online, she knew how to log in. He sent home, like this boy up here on the top, he has a baggie with his material, so he did his little experiment, and then he flipped the computer over to take a picture and take a video of the motion that was going on with that car that he was using. That student was able to do this at home because he sent home the materials, Mom came and picked up the little baggie, and then she logged in and did it. No kid lost it because it was online. Everybody did it because it was online. If Roger had a couple students and if they didn't finish and they had access at home or at the library or grandma's house, they could do it because it was online. Ben writes in blue, Sam writes in pink. I mean, the color code goes to the kid, so he as a teacher then can tell who's done what. The kids can tell. It's all editing online. So while Kelly's in it, I'm in it. We're editing and collaborating at the same time. I don't have to wait for her. It's simultaneous. So I mean, the lesson that they did was phenomenal. And to walk around and I could ask any of those kids, "What are you doing? Tell me about this. How did you get that? What's the point of taking a picture? Why are you using the video camera?" Every single kid could answer my question. So it was very cool. Very cool. So kudos to both of you.
And there will be many more of those to come.
Can we talk more about digital native and digital immigrant or no? Because I got questions on it.
Go for it.
So, the digital native, digital immigrant thing, for those, I'm assuming you all read it, was fascinating to me. If you think about it, we hear it all the time where people are saying, "Oh, if I just give it to my son or my grandson, they'll figure out how to program from the VCR to now having my computer working." But if you think about it, why? I mean, they were never trained for that. They didn't have any formal class. They're not being taught at school. They
same tool for a different purpose, or even Facebook or Twitter, but I need you to use it for this purpose. It's for learning now. Yep, I understand you got the social part, but now as a teacher, and that's where, me as a teacher, that's where a lot of my guidance and my facilitator role comes into play, and Cindy can speak to that too. It's we're taking all of that energy and that positive stuff that they have and helping them to focus on whatever it is that they need accomplished. I learn from them, and they learn from me. I mean, it's almost, and we talked about that today, I may be leading this training, but I need you to help and share with me because I'm also learning from you. And that happens all the time. A couple weeks ago, I was in a 5th grade classroom, and the kid says, well, you don't know that? I'm like, I don't. Will you show me again? That was super cool. Well, you just did this, this, and this. I'm like, that is so cool. And then I talked to the kid next to me, did you know how to do that? And the girl was just like, I can't believe you didn't know that. And I said, well, I'm learning from you. I'm a teacher, but I'm a learner too. We're all learners. And that's the cool thing. And the little girl was just so excited. She went and told, did you see what I just showed Mrs. Bunny? I mean, she was so excited to show me something.
That's another huge piece is what it does for their self-esteem and their how they feel valued. Because wow, I showed my teacher how to do something.
Denise, I think Nina had a question.
Oh, no, I was going to just respond to Colin there. I'm definitely still in the immigrant status. I'll probably never get out of that. But what I remember when we started using the net computer itself, we were afraid to do anything. If you turned it off, you were going to lose everything that you had on it. Kids don't have that fear. I don't know why, but innately, they just want to find things, and they'll just surf, and they'll just go here, there, and try this or that, and usually they're just fine with it. So it is a mindset. I was so glad to read these pieces to let me know that it wasn't that our teaching or that we weren't totally wrong with what we were trying to do, but their brains were evolving. We were not. Their brains were evolving, and that's why we weren't getting through to them. So it was our mistake in not evolving with them, but it was just, it's a matter of learning something new.
We're mistaken. You definitely regress.
Penny Jensen is a 3rd grade teacher at Jefferson, and she did want me to share an example of an elementary. So Roger and Carla did the secondary, and she had, it's an RTI time. Most elementaries have anywhere from a 30 to a 50-minute RTI time, which is response intervention. So they take that time to really focus on differentiating, specifically for reading. So this group of students, she had about 15 of them that were at somewhat of the same level, and they decided they wanted to do some research. So she guided them in the research, but each child got to pick whatever was of interest to them. So a lot of kids picked where their parents had come from or their grandparents. This kid just was really interested in Wales. So she showed them 5 different programs. Blogster, Prezi, they could use PowerPoint. Let's see, I think they did Animoto, and the 3rd one, or the 5th one was. But they had 5 different programs that they could pick from. Here's how she did it. She showed them a 2 to 3 minute video for each program. And then she said, well, you just saw the capabilities of these 5 different programs. Pick one that looks interesting to you. Find your information. They had all the details. This is what I expect you to have. I need to have this many opinions, this many facts. And then put them together. And so this is what this one little boy came up with, his facts. And these are videos in YouTube. I mean, they're powerful videos. Play right within YouTube.
This is the season of the gray whale.
We can make it bigger if we
California
want.
gray whales.
But the whole point of it was, this was chaos as well. But if you stay in there for a few minutes, it was organized chaos because all of the kids were focused on doing exactly what they wanted to do. And these are all on her website right now, so you can download the file if they're downloaded, or if they're on the internet, it just opens up from that link. But the cool thing was, when a kid got stuck and couldn't figure out, I want this red and black checkered, oh, I know how to do that, and just immediately was over that. Whereas Penny was focused with 3 kids for a good 20 minutes. She was just with those 3 kids because they were really, couldn't figure out how do I get this research? Here's all this information, but it's too much. How do I sort through it? And she was able to focus on those 3 kids, while the others, they didn't need that. So they went with what they just kept going. I mean, it's really neat. So the differentiation, it's just really huge. It really is.
Make a quick comment too on that video showed of Ferris Bueller's Day Off and the teacher talking. My son, and I just keep talking as a parent. Stop me if I'm going to run this too long. But he was telling me about his classes. My son loves school. He loves his teachers. When we go to my daughter, who's in elementary school, her spring scene, he wants to hang out and run into all his other teachers. He really likes school. Not the best student, really loves school. He was talking to me, and we're talking about some classes, and he was talking about
goes to exactly what Colin was just speaking. Rates decrease, engagement is higher, attendance is higher because kids want to be there. They're engaged and they want to be in the room. Discipline goes down. The schools that we visited, South Berwyn, phenomenal. We're going to Leiden, where else have we gone? We talked to people from Wharton, all of the tech coordinators. graders in the surrounding areas that we've spoken with, the discipline areas, that's what they say has been a huge difference for them. They have not seen the referrals. They've really gone way down. In supporting our teachers, this photo actually is taken from last week. And you're going to notice that some of those are using gateway computers. So we are training teachers right now. So we did a 4-hour training. Okay, if you don't remember how to use a smartboard, please come. Go to a town learning or come and I'm going to show you the basics of the smartboard. But then after that, okay, we're done with that. Well, now, how do you use this for small group? How do you use it for interactivity for you, for your students, whole class, small group? So that's what we've been focusing on, and it's been phenomenal. But these gateway computers are 9 years old. So when they get stuck, we can't even upgrade to the newest version of notebook software because it crashes the computer. So those computers then, okay, well, put your computer aside, I'm going to work on it later when there's a break, but I want you to keep going. So here's a 5-year-old Dell, and I cross my fingers when I give it to them. And then when that crashes, I just look at them and I feel like I want to say, I don't know, go home, because I have nothing better to give you. It's very frustrating for me, and it's frustrating for them, and I try not to show my frustration because they're frustrated. They want to learn. Teachers are asking for this, and we'll show you in a little bit how many teachers are saying, I need the tools. Why are you not giving them to me? And we say, well, we're trying. We're working on it. Give us a little bit more time. And I feel like that's what we've been saying kind of all year because they want it. They're asking for it. They're begging for it. And Cindy, we've talked about instructional coaches. So Cindy and Amy are at the high school. Me as a toe setter in technology, our roles are a little bit different, but really, they're almost the same. And we've talked about how I need your skills and you need some of my, so we got to get together because I need more maybe of your coaching stuff and I can give you some technology stuff because that's what it is. That being in the classroom, that's what the coaching is. There can't be a coaching for technology and coaching for instruction. They can't be separate. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. So they have to be one. I don't know if you want to speak to that as well.
That was my slide next. I think one of the things that we've been talking about is that whole idea of embedding it and the technology and the instruction. Doug talked about that earlier. At the high school this summer, thank you very much, we are doing a lot of curriculum work. And all of the curriculum work, everybody that I've worked with, we talk about what is good teaching. And good teaching is using the technology. And this morning when Ann and I were working, she's like, I don't know if we're going to have the Chromebooks this year or not. And I said, we're going to find a way to do this because we know that our students have to be able to do the inquiry and they have to be able to find that information. So we are forging ahead. There will be computers in that room when she needs them. I know where they are, and I can get them for her. But I think that's the thing. It's just that professional development, and I think in terms of instructional coaches, we can't know it all. The instructional coaches can't know it all. But we are the people that can ask the questions to help the teachers and the students figure it out. And that's what Ann and I have been working for the last 3 years. And I just want to tell you that the first time that Ann and I worked on a project, she was anti-technology. She sat there and told me how it's not, the technology isn't important. And today, she's like, okay, now Cindy, we can't forget students have to read. If they can't just look at videos, they have to read. And and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, what a change from where we started to where we are. And a lot of that had to do with, well, most of it had to do with her master's degree. And then the work we've done along the way. And the paradigm shift does not happen overnight. But you have to collaborate with people to do it. And I think one of the things that we've talked about, there's 2 teachers that I have really worked with and have made really big paradigm shifts. And it's always, well, because I work with you, I'm holding myself accountable. Because I can go and I can learn it in a one-day shot, but then when I go to do it in my classroom, I forget it. And I think any teacher that's had professional development will agree with that. But when you have that instructional coach, they're in there with you and they're helping. And those first times you kind of go crazy and you make the big paradigm shift, there can be two people in a room. And that's what we've done. That's what we've been able to do, which is different. Roger has to just make it happen on his own, but he's got a partner in the building at least. And what we have at the high school is we have Amy and I who can work through that whole cycle of curriculum with the teacher, but then we can also be in there, and when the next teacher wants to make that shift, we can walk them through what we've done. And I think that, to me, that's that key. It's that ongoing and embedded professional development. So we use all of our tools all the time. That's.
And I'd just like to add or emphasize, when we talk about professional development, you're going to hear every one of us say it's sustained and ongoing. It's not a one-time workshop you go to for 8 hours, and then here you go back on your own. It's sustained and it's ongoing, which then really is about having instructional coaches in the buildings to work with the teachers on a day-to-day basis. I mean, Ann and Cindy actually have been working there 3 years. I know they've got long-term working relationships with other people. When we first got the instructional coaches, Cindy and Amy and I went out to University of Kansas Jim Knight for 6 days of instructional coach training. And one of the terms that Jim Knight used, he is one of the leading researchers on coaching. We all drank the Kool-Aid. Really, but the point was, he talked about that the teacher and the coach have to have, and he literally used the word intimate relationship. They have to be able to just be very open and honest with each other, provide each other feedback. And again, when it came to the administrator's role, he basically said, we don't, and I made sure everyone in the building did this, we were not allowed to put on their teacher's evaluation, you must work with the instructional coach to do this or that, because then it becomes punitive. And the other thing we did was, when Cindy and Amy would meet with me on a regular basis, and Jenny Huber with us on a regular basis, they would report aggregate numbers of classroom visits and what they were doing with those classroom visits. So it was never, in fact, Ann was the first person to say, hey, I'm really excited about what's going on. Can we talk to Doug and other people about it? So, but that's the ongoing and sustained is just a critical piece. It's not about one-time workshops. It's about having people in the building who can be an ongoing support as you're developing your instructional practices.
You're not going to see those achievement effects unless it's ongoing and sustained.
Exactly.
It can't just be a one-shot.
Right.
And just over the course of 3 years, every year, it's been about the same percent. We work with about 70% of our teachers that they choose to work with us. And it's not from year to year, it's not always the exact same teachers, but it's about 70%. And someone told me tonight 80% would be ideal, but 70%, and it's more than one kind of shot.
And it's all about them reaching out to you, not them trying out to make a sales pitch for them.
The 45 hours of professional development, obviously it's ongoing and sustained, but is that based on what kind of digital immigrants is that based on? Like people who are somewhat familiar with technology, people who have been teaching for...
I would say they've got to have non-familiarity with it. It needs to be pretty true about that.
Well, and that's for the teachers, so it's going to be a wide range. I think that's an average of 45 hours, because that's coming from Apple, and the one-to-one, really, the research is fairly limited, because we haven't been doing it for more than 4 or 5 years tops. So some of that research is fairly new, but that's an average. So maybe I might need a lot more than you may need. So it depends on the teacher, but still a lot of it is, it's not just the device, but it's, you may have strong device skills but need help with management of it or lesson design, whereas I may have all that, but give me this device and I have no clue what to do with it. So that training itself can be differentiated as well, and should be, because you and I all have different needs.
And I want to emphasize, you've been here to use the word device. We don't want to get hung up on, we're all talking about iPads or Chromebooks. We had a Google Hangout. You know what Google Hangout is? Basically, Brian, Ben, and Andrew and I were here. We had a consultant from Google in Palo Alto, California. Roger was in his house.
I was at my house.
Kelly was at her house on her iPhone. And Denise was on
up and we're ready for our rotation, we'll investigate whatever device is out there at the time and go with what best fits our need. You know, you're not married to a particular device.
Just for a point of, so everyone knows where we're at today, on average, what do we have for professional development for our teachers?
For technology.
No, just professional development on an annual basis.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here.
Is it 18 to 20 hours?
Yeah.
That's kind of the range. Is that right, Kathy?
Well, we've got
3 calendar days.
3 calendar days, and that's it at other groups.
Yeah. My point is, I just want everyone to know there's a gap. Okay.
huge, and we tend to, what we're doing is we really target the groups, you know, as we rotate through. Like, for example, this year we spent a lot of time with our middle school language arts people, and it was phenomenal. But we had each grade level for 3 days, and I mean they've got the curriculum line, they've got pacing guides established. I'm sorry, social studies, language arts, and we have my capital next year.
But yes, it's a huge gap.
Yes.
Can I just make one last comment about personal coaches? I think one of the other things that I learned personally is that working with Cindy and Amy over the last year, Cindy in particular, is one of the things teachers don't always have a time for is self-reflection on a lesson. So it's not just that I've been working with Cindy on developing my lessons, it's also taking time to look back at how that lesson worked and finding ways to improve it or change it to make it better for student learning. And that's a huge piece, because I think that's where teachers also really grow, not just in implementation, but then looking at how that lesson went and then making those changes as necessary. And having Cindy to bounce those ideas off of has been very critical to my growth as an educator. And so that's why I also would strongly recommend the instructional coach piece for professional development.
I have another question. Some of the more recent curriculums that we purchased, like the Reading Street, does that have a technology component to it? I mean, millions was invested in.
Yes. Actually, Reading Street does. We just got the middle school, that 3rd edition. That's got all the resources are online. And when we start talking later about some of the benefits, we'll talk about, for example, workbooks. We spend tens of thousands of dollars on consumable workbooks every year. A lot of the teachers admittedly say, I only use 3 or 4 pages out of that workbook.
Yeah. As parents, how many do we just throw away that they got?
Exactly. And so what we are going to adopt Everyday Mathematics, the new series, they've got what's called an e-suite. The e-suite has got every single resource for students, parents, and teachers. So instead of buying a physical hard copy workbook that they might only use 3 or 4 sheets out of, they go that virtual workbook, just take those 2 or 3 sheets, print the exact number they need for the class, there's no waste whatsoever. So there's tremendous cost savings we realize in that, as well as e-textbooks as well.
And the e-suite is nice, so the student can even log in, or parent can log in, they can do it right there, turn it in right there. So if they wanted to, the teacher wouldn't even have to print anything out. Nobody loses it, you know where it is. You can verify that your child's done it, and the teacher knows that they're in, so that capability.
And one of the things that we did last summer, when we updated some of the forms for curriculum adoption form, I included a big section on, you know, is this material available in electronic media, you know, what type of media, etc. So it's not about everything we look at going forward. It's got to have some sort of
And going back to Denise's point, you know, before, or with other lessons and other homework and other things that we've done in the class, I would say we probably get about an 80% turning rate of homework. With this lesson, it was 100%. May not have all been done, but at least we can assess what they have completed and still see what they've, you know, if they've gained some knowledge of it. When a student turns nothing in, you have no way to assess if they've gained any knowledge from it all. So going from 80% to 100% is a big jump. When you get that 20%, that's those two parts of our triangle in our RTI model. Our kids that need extra help, we're actually getting information from them so we can assess them better.
These are just some of the parent concerns that actually...
Well, what we were talking about was actually a phone call with the parent concern. But over the course of the last year, I've had a lot actually going to run that for you in a few minutes here. But again, then the unused student workbooks. Kathy, we had a couple pallets worth of stuff coming back from the buildings that we paid top dollar for retail. We got it back. We got $1,400. Basically selling for scrap. I mean, a huge waste there. And then we wanted to kind of put out there that all the board members, as parents, anything you know, just curious. We're not.
Sorry, but it might just be that I live in a rural area. In a rural area, getting internet access is like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. So my question, I can ask it a different way, because even if a student lives in town, if there isn't internet access in the household, or they can't get the bandwidth that they need, how is that going to be?
Right.
We've actually, obviously, they can always go to a McDonald's, Starbucks, any of those places like that. There's plenty of other communities that have that stuff worked out. We've already talked to the public library about extending our network into their network. So student, staff member, whatever, that something has already tied to our network would be able to walk over, use it. So it takes out the fact that, hey, yeah, I'm a library member and I have an overdue book. Right now, if they have a fine, they can't get on the internet there. So they would be able to still go on and use our network over there. And so it's just things like that. And as we build it out, and obviously it's a little tougher over in Cortland and Malta, they don't have those places like that. But as we start to branch out into a true one-to-one where they're taking it home and kids are accessing stuff at home, we go into those communities and find the areas that the staff and students can go to. Yeah.
The way it is out in the country.
Yep.
Thinking about too, the ability to download content online. So there could be a component where faculty is creating the content with the student while they're at school. And just grab it.
Well, on the device.
Be able to device home.
One of the things we talked about today, because students probably will not have a device to take home. And we talked about the work they do in class, and they'll know whether they need to come back during flex. Okay. Or they'll know if they need to print something that they can take home and read. Okay. And so I think that when we visited Marengo High School, and that was just a group of high school teachers that went there, one of the things that they did right at the beginning was give them a list of all the places where they can go for free. Yeah. Which again, if you live in the country, you have to take the bus. But I think that's a piece of what people are thinking about as they move in that direction.
Yeah, just to give you guys an example, I bought my daughter a laptop for graduation, and I tried to download Office for Mac onto it yesterday morning.
From home?
25 or 26 hours to do it. I mean, it ends on a Verizon system. So, I mean, it can be a little frustrating. Let's just put it that way.
And so that's a big question.
Really huge downloads.
I know it is, but we were just like, we kept watching the bar and the numbers kept getting bigger.
So you want to come back in a couple hours?
No, I did not. I just walked away and left it. But if there are really large downloads like that, for people who don't live in town and don't have great access, it could maybe be an issue. That's my only concern.
It's not just people live in town, Vicki. I mean, kids live in town here and the parents are working, they're at home alone, they can't get to the library, they can't go anywhere. There's a lot of issues, not just in rural areas, with distribution of service.
Okay.
That's a basic issue that has to be addressed, yes.
And some of the things that we've talked to other schools about, when before the kid leaves the school building, they download the Google Doc. So it's a live document on the computer, but they don't need internet access to operate the document. And then they work on it at home, and they get to school, it syncs up, and it's like that. I mean, it's that fast.
There
really.
are workarounds for it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been a big question. That's definitely something to bring up. My daughter's on the swim team. When you sit on that bus for 2 hours and you go swim your 30 seconds for an 8-hour meet, you're taking your device with you and you're doing it on the bus. When her best friend went to state for swimming, I mean, she's gone for a couple days out of school, she can access that stuff. So that's an important thing, being able to, without internet access, being able to still get to your materials and be able to sync them back up.
What company was it for $10 and parents and families were on free reduced price?
Oh, it was Comcast has a very entry level basic amount of service that they'll provide for that. And that's the only one that I know of in town right
It's
now.
about $10.
And it's based on free and reduced status.
But it's an issue that we've discussed in the tech committee. We know that's one of the.
Yes.
I mean, there'll be a bunch of things that need to be covered and addressed, but yeah, they'll have to be taken into consideration because you need to have equity for all students.
Absolutely.
The content that they have.
And that's something we've all been concerned about, not just moving forward, we will on our current resources.
So I've got one on this that, like for me, so I work a lot, so I wasn't quite engaged in the school year as I should have been. I told my kids that they got A's and B's, because Barnes get A's and B's. Get A's and B's, and buy iPads. That was the ulterior motive for me was I really believe that if they have one of these devices that's going to help them in their overall educational experience and it's going to allow them to be smarter students, right? Wasn't anticipating my son's grades to start diving. So got engaged late, for sure, but in enough time that I felt that we could have turned some things around. So he was going from like 3 A's, a B, and 3 C's in his classes. We're getting down to the final wire, he's 4 A's, 2 B's, and a C. C plus, 78.29, I think was the percentage. But what was interesting is it was in math, and his math teacher at the beginning of the year when we went to the open house said there is no homework in my math class. It's up to me to teach your kid math, not you. That's fine and dandy, and that could be an effective strategy, but what if it doesn't take for a child? So here I am, my son's having trouble in math, and he's bringing work home, and homework starts showing up all of a sudden. So, okay, we're trying to work through the homework. It's been a long time. I mean, I know it's 7th grade math, but there's some complicated stuff in there. I've been doing math for a while. And more importantly, I couldn't remember the rules on how things work. And I'm asking my son, but he's not a big help because he's the one struggling to trying to get the darn assignment done. So here the two of us are going back and forth trying to figure out how this works because there's also no textbook, is still my understanding. So I have no textbook, physical textbook, to be able to look, to be able to figure out the problem. Because I think once I had it, I'd be able to work through it and determine it. So you gotta realize it's going on for weeks, and we're working hours. There's sometimes it's 10:15, 10:30, 9 o'clock is bedtime. We read to 9:30 in our house, and we're up till 10 to 10:30, many nights working on his math, and I have no access to instructional material. What's what we call
And that's with the CMP2, right?
Yeah.
CMP3, everything's online.
So, but this is where we're at right now. So here I am struggling as a parent that my son was learning at a different level in the classroom for whatever reason. I'm trying to engage with my son, and I've got no ability. And at first I'm telling him, what do you mean you don't have a textbook? Come on. So I'm reaching out, is there a digital textbook? So there's a digital textbook I could have got, at least on those nights when I really needed it. Find out there's no textbook. My son goes through all of this, gets a 78.29, and I can't buy an iPad. The moral story of that, I mean, I understand I should have set my example or my standards differently. I anticipate something like this. But if I could have had access to a digital textbook to be able to review the homework assignments with my son, to really understand what's going on in the classroom, or more importantly now with what we're talking about, actually maybe I'll actually see a video of the actual lesson itself. As an engaged parent, late in the game, but I became more engaged. I was completely restricted from the ability to be able to help my child. And that was incredibly irritating to me. And then I'm thinking, okay, it's me. I love technology and I love all this. And I started talking about to Brian that I hear, this is a second frustration, by the way. I hear, I'm at work and a woman I work with shows me her phone and she just got a text message of all her child's homework. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. You guys are doing this is fantastic. I tell Brian, you know, I've got my son writing down what his homework assignments are every day, and that's a chore, keeping track of that and making sure he does it. And Brian tells me, no, every day the homework's posted online. Fantastic. Probably should have known that. My wife's the main school liaison, naturally teacher, naturally my wife. But I'm sitting there thinking, it's like, how could I not know this? I have children in the district. Maybe I'm just a complete delinquent parent here. We laugh, but that could be part of it. But ultimately, here I am. I'm on the technology committee. I want to see more technology brought to the schools, and I don't even know that every day at Putney Middle School, all teachers are required to submit their homework, and it's available online. So for months, I'm making my son write down every homework assignment when I could have just gone online and find information.
is it linked to?
This is phenomenal.
The video or the website?
This is just an example because it goes along with what we were talking about. I teach 3rd grade at Little John, and I didn't know if you wanted to talk real quick.
Okay. When we look at the first model,
She's actually writing on the spot board in the classroom.
we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way, the way that Mrs. Holland learned growing up. Okay? We start with the 3 on bottom, and we go up. We work from right to left. We do the 1 column first. 3 times 7 is? 21. Put the 1 down low and carry the 2 next door to the 10s column. We then go 3 times 2 is 6. Once we have 6, we have to remember to add 2 more. So the total would be 8. Then we go to the final.
This is what I needed.
Which means that is the end of our problem. So we can put the entire 12 down in the answer box. Start at the right, count over 1, 2, 3, comma, and the answer is 1,281. Another method is called the partial sums method.
Total different
The
algorithm.
partial sums method, which some of you are very familiar with, Karian loves this one. We're going to take apart this number. We're going to look at the number and expanded 4. The 4 actually represents 400.
My board is
The 2 is in the 10th column, so the 2 is actually worth 20. And the 7 is in the 1st column, so the 7 is only worth 7. We're going to take all of these numbers and multiply them by 3. When students have a hard time remembering to carry in the traditional model, this is often a strategy that works good for them. So when we look at this one, we pretend that this is 4 times 3 to make it easier, and that equals 12. But it's not just 4, it's 400, so this becomes 1,200. We take away the 0 and think this is just 3 times 2 to make it easy. 3 times 2 is 6. But this is not just a 2, it's worth 20, so the answer is really 60. Okay. And then finally, 7 times 3 is 21. In the end, we need to take these 3 numbers and add them up. 1,200, you need to make sure that each number is written with the place value to make sure that all numbers are in the appropriate place value. Let's now add them up. 0 plus 0 plus 1 is 6 plus 2 plus 0 is 8. Bring down 2, bring down, we have the same answer, 1,281. For those of you that like the lattice method, there are 3 digits times 1 digit. So
she goes on to explain this one. A couple things I love about this. She never stopped. You can tell there were a couple times where somebody walked into the room or they were interrupted, but it didn't matter. They just kept going like that was an everyday or every time thing. I also like over here when she did this, how she explained to the parents, here's why you might use this. Here's why this might be good for your kid. Because as a parent, I would want to know that this was my math frustration that you're having now. This was mine about 4 years ago and my daughter. Because partial sums, what is that? Until I started teaching in DeKalb, I didn't know what that was.
And lattice multiplication
I would have liked
blew
this.
people out of the water.
Every year I have at least 5 or 6 families write letters, call, ask, how do you do this lattice? I have no idea. I didn't learn this way. I can't figure this out. So I figure if there's 5 or 6 calling, emailing, writing notes on homework, there's probably 15 more who didn't do that, and there's 5 or 6 more who just turned it in and had no clue and didn't have the support at home either. And so that was just prompted by a parent was asking me, and then I uploaded that to our website, and you can access it from there. Another thing that it can be utilized for, it doesn't have to be just for families. If a student is having a hard time during class, they could go onto the website, go on and use that as a student link too, which creates more of me when I'm walking around 28 kids. You know, they can sit in a group and rewatch the video. The reteaching can be going on that way with models and examples.
And every year I get many calls about lattice math also, and I'm not teaching it. It's just so foreign in households. They're not sure how to go about it. So.
Well, and along with this, we did a website this year, 2 schools, Little John and Jefferson. Denise spent a ton of time over there, but now every single teacher has a web page. It's laid out pretty much like this. We landed on we're using Edline as the product. It makes it very easy to update. And the end of the year survey on teacher satisfaction was
31 out of 33 would recommend that one was indifferent. But it was easy. The BLT teams from those 2 schools, they are the ones that decided what's going up here. They decided what are the 3 expectations, and they did it during staff meeting time. And then Kyle and I were there for support. We've got videos. We were there. They could email, call. We were just made sure that we were always available. And I don't know if you want to say anything, but it's a great place where they can put information with a couple clicks.
It was very easy to use. Took very little time to update daily, and I know during our spring conferences with each parent too, I went through and actually showed them how to get on and do everything, and a lot of them started using that and accessing that. I stopped sending flyers home and said, there's like in our assignment notebooks we'd write, there's a soccer flyer, and they knew that they could get on it under the newsletters or the school handouts. So that if they lost a permission slip, instead of sending another one home, I said you can go online and you can download it. Trying to enable those families too, and to get them to shift into the 21st century as well.
One kindergarten teacher at Jefferson had a live webcam. Brian set up a camera, so it was in her room. So right here, they had the live webcam going all the time. And there was one night where the camera went down. It lost internet connection or something. I got 3 phone calls saying, "Where are the chicks? We can't see the chicks. They're in the middle of hatching." So I ran out there quick and got it back on. But it was it was very important to them. The next day that I got an email she forwarded from 5 different parents saying, thank you. It was so important to us. We wanted to watch those chicks hatch. I mean, for kindergartner, that's huge. So that was a big deal. So we said that we have a lot of teachers that are asking for this. We're not just sitting in a room thinking, we think this is a good idea. Let's see what the board thinks. We've had teachers coming to us say, you need to get us some stuff. We are stuck. We're at this point where we want to do this, and we can't because the tools that you've given us, they were great 5 years ago, 9 years ago, and they're not anymore. They're crashing all the time. Our kids, I've got 5 laptops, and I spend more time trying to troubleshoot those darn 5 laptops than it's even worth doing. So we sent out this really a week. Teachers had a week. Are you interested in this inquiry-based with technology?
And it was the last week of school.
It was. The timing was horrible. The timing was horrible. So
it was a true test.
Yeah. How dedicated are you? Really?
Multiple reminders. Please take this.
But we brought this to leadership, and we asked the principals, what do you think? Do you know what your buildings, where people are? Do you think we would get some interest? I said, you know what? Let's ask, because we're not sure exactly how many, so let's ask. So we did. Notice the first question is, have you talked to your principal? And then if they say no, it boots them out, because we really wanted to know, please check with your principal on
So
this.
you can see what they had to commit to. They had to commit to professional development.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay, that's okay, that's good.
We wanted them to know that we're going to support you. So after they put in their building information and their grade, really we just wanted to know 3 questions.
Hey Roger, can you read those?
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
My glass.
What opportunities do you envision one-to-one technology will present in your classroom? Give a summary of an inquiry-based lesson you teach and how technology could enhance this lesson. And what concerns do you feel need to be addressed for this pilot to be successful?
We had 52 teachers across the district fill this out within that 1 week during finals grading time, saying please, and I've had more phone calls and more emails and people stopping me in the hallway saying, do I get it? Was I in? Am I going to get the technology? Are you going to give me PD? And all I do is look and say, remember, we just wanted to know what the interest level was. We never promised anything. We wanted to know, where are we? How many people are really going to push us for this? And they said, okay, but know that I'm at the top of the list, right? I mean, they want to know. And right now, I'm not even sure what to tell them. We're looking at it. We're trying to see what we can support, because if we can't support it, we're done. I mean, if we don't have the PD, if we don't have the tools, there is no moving forward for this type of learning.
Those 52 teachers represent 15% of our classroom teachers.
That's Title I. I had people with Title I teachers say, hey, I don't have a full classroom, but can I apply? Sure. You know what? Tell us how you would use it. PE, music, I mean, we have them across the board. It's all over. And I don't know, is there anything else? Anyone else want to bring up?
I have a question. So, Denise, you said you were doing professional development and had 5-year-old computers that weren't usable. That's a little bit scary to me with the potential price tag that's been thrown around.
Well, we're using 9-year-old gateways still, and we get stuck a lot. So when we get totally stuck and have to restart about 6 times, then we bring out the 5-year-old ones that I actually took from Founders. I stole them so we could use them this week as backups. So we're using those. But they're high. A lifetime of a typical device is what we're looking at for that type of device.
With a laptop, yeah, about 5 years.
But that gets to the whole issue of equity across the district, because you've got every high school with a 1.5, 2, less than 2-year-old great computer, and in Cortland,
And I don't even know if any of those that were purchased, the gateways or the dolls, were even new, or were they all? They were all refurbished when we got them too, so they weren't even new when we got them. 5 years ago, when we took away the replacement cycle, we're now trying to play catch up. We're at I hate to say it, but we're at kind of a bad spot. We're behind in our equipment, definitely. So
the computers I had in my classroom before I got my devices were made by TBC 12 years ago. They're still not working. And they were built strong and worked great. But it took the kids 20, or it would take the instructional time that it takes away. I normally would average about half of a class I could use those computers.
Denise, you said we're in a bad spot because our stuff's sold, but I also see this opportunity. We know that the technology, we know we have to have some technology in the schools. We know we have a whole slew of technology out there that has to be replaced. So we're actually, I see it as opportunity where, okay, we're going to replace it anyway. Now we can make an even more informed decision about, okay, if we're going to spend those dollars, then what can we spend those dollars on? They're going to have the most impact as they achieve.
And when I say we're in a bad spot, I just mean because we have some frustration now. Yes. They've been frustrated for a couple of years, a lot of them, because they haven't had the opportunity to move forward with the device.
The video that I did was on my gateway, which was from the first year I started working here. And we didn't have people walking into the room. It was freezing. It was frozen. So I had to keep touching and tapping the arrow and trying to get the pen to recalibrate with everything. So during that video, you can see it ruins the flow sometimes of what's truly happening.
And I even talk about that in my trainings. Do you see how Emily does a little pause here? But she's going to keep going. She's modeling how to troubleshoot. She's modeling patience, because kids see that. If you shut down and get frustrated and close it up, we're done, I don't know what to do. Kids see that, and that's a big thing. So it is important to keep going, and our teachers do. We have phenomenal teachers. So all of these pushes, we keep looking at this and thinking, all of these things are so important, and they're pushing us to go there. I mean, it just seems like we have nowhere to go but to move to all the types of learning that these people have talked about today. Especially with Common Core that's been out for a year and a half now, and we will have to adopt the following school year.
And the assessments that will have to be administered.
The park assessments, absolutely.
And in one video, I was going to bring it up, where the kids were holding up the cards. Several of them were talking about globally. I want to be part of this globally. And you look at your mission statement. contribute to a global society, and the kids want that too.
The other thing we talked about was going back to the retreat last summer and the board goals. A lot of them had goals that were related to either just the implementation of technology in the classroom, but even more so, there was 2 goals that were specifically related to increasing communication between school and families and students. And obviously with the website pilot, we got tremendous feedback from that. We would like to roll that out to the other 6 elementary schools next year if we have the resources available. Because again, we've got to have people in the building helping teachers with it. It's too easy to get frustrated and then just shut down. So if they've got somebody they can help them with it in the building, it would be a tremendous success. And again, and then once the word's out there, that it becomes an expectation. We're providing the time, we're providing the training for the staff, so there's no excuse why every teacher cannot have that webpage. And then this one, again, improving communication with stakeholders in the school community. I even think about Emily's lesson there. Your child's homesick that day. Go on her website, click on the map, and she's got that wonderful lesson there.
Well, I just want to say that when my children went to this new map that's not there anymore, I used to pay one of my kids, my older son, to do that lattice with the younger one because I could never figure it out. $5 a night it cost.
Now you're instructional.
Still have to pay that.
So I'm just so glad Tom kind of let off at the retreat last year and the goals that were established. And what we're saying is everything we're talking about here is completely consistent with those goals.
And we want to make sure we're supporting your goals. So number 3, that's why we're here. We wanted to share that information with you and hopefully get some direction from you and where you'd like us to continue going so that we can use our tools for our students' needs. So we have a tech timeline put together. In fact,
by the way, it gets ugly, yeah. What we did was...
it's actually beautiful. Denise, it's gorgeous.
I basically went and said, this is my vision, and Denise bid in. But basically, we've got the timeline going all the way out to 2017-2018 school year. You'll see that you've got some detail. But basically, if you look at the first boxes down at the bottom, that was basically this school year, and I think everything on there we did accomplish. But then what you can do is, for more detail, so
This will be provided to the board.
I didn't expect you to read it here. You'll be said this as well. But basically, what we did was, if you see the tabs below, the tab that Denise is on right now says virtual timeline of activities. You need your glasses too. Visual.
Visual timeline of activities. So in looking across the next 4 or 5 years, here are the activities. It's basically a summary of the activities that will happen in this time period. So here on each tab below, when you get to this, then you can access 2013, 12-13, that's what we did. 13-14, here are all the activities specifically listed.
Detailed out. So each of those tabs. So for the 13-14 school year, that's all the activities that we have planned for that year. So it includes everything from implementation of hardware, software, professional development. What else?
It was important to us to break them down by first semester and full year, second semester, and then summer. And then even within that, all right, how much of our dollars, if professional development is that important, are we spending about 20% or 25% on PD? Because if we're not, we need to reevaluate that. If we're spending 100% on hardware, we're really setting ourselves up for failure. So that was very important to us. Hardware the first couple years is a higher percent because we haven't been replacing it. So the first couple years, there is a higher emphasis on hardware. But that's how each tab is set up. So you can go ahead and look at it through your...
And we'll send free reduced price lunch. So they were able to realize phenomenal success.
I was going to say too that I thought that the off to the side stuff, because like Roger said, we really got the dog and pony show. But what I did was I was looking in the doors of the rooms we weren't visiting. And so when we were in the one district, it was South Berwyn, right? When we were in South Berwyn, I'm looking in the rooms. The kids are on the floor. They're in little, huddled in groups. They're working. They're talking about this. And then at the other district, we're walking down the hall, and I'm looking in the rooms, and the kids are in rows, and they're looking at the teacher. And there's not a computer on the desk,
asked one teacher, I believe it was the fifth, I think Brian was in there with me. I said, how much professional development? And she said, really nothing. I think we had one in-service day. And it was
In Berwyn, it's my understanding at Berwyn that the teachers were already working in the area of curriculum development for inquiry-based learning before they received
Yes.
one-to-one.
There's that investment in PD upfront prior to even
If you know about how long they were working on the inquiry.
semester, I believe.
semester. And that's the plan we've got here. We thought that was very successful part of the model. So you'll see that we talk about getting the devices to the teachers and then getting them to professional development at least a semester before it's rolled out in the classes.
And I'm just curious because you talked about they really should have 45 hours of professional development. We know the institute day times won't cover that. You know,
Just
are you
rough estimate. Rough estimate, yeah. I did a calculation of we just had to pay, and it comes out to a little over $500,000.
No. I'm curious about the time itself.
Or the time when it would happen?
Yes, because the institute days
Right.
are minimal. They certainly won't
No,
come up to
not-
45 hours. So how are you thinking? Have you thought of that yet?
It's going to
Where do you
be
get those hours?
after school. I mean,
When we did the Each Teacher grant, we did basically 6 days of subs throughout the school year, and that seemed to work the best. Teachers were too tired to stay after and before, and so we did during the time, and they still have to create the lesson for when they're not there and they're not there. But those 6 days, we just make sure that these have got to be good days. If you're out of your classroom, they've got to be very focused in, and that seemed to work very well.
It's also less, it's 40% expense savings, having subs come in than having to pay teachers on that each school.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
If this clearly, I mean, to roll out something like this all in one shot, with vertical and things like that, it seems like that would be very difficult. So if you do this in stages, you start at the bottom and work up, you start at the top and work down.
There's different
And then there's
philosophies
a
on that.
fall.
There's different philosophies on that, and you'll see on the timeline. The one thing they said was don't even think about just throwing everything out at once.
Right.
But because obviously, then. Talk about our bandwidth and infrastructure.
I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure. I mean, we have very good infrastructure as it stands right now. I mean, that's one of the key things that our technology is really good at in the district. We own our own fiber. Our backbones are solid. We have connections into the Illini Cloud, our partnership there, as well as connections into NIU for bandwidth and things like that. They get us into Chicago to increase those sort of things as we move forward in something like this. But we still have to get buy-in from the teachers. As has been stated many, many times, I mean, 8-year-old computers and trying to implement something like this and trying to do any sort of PD, that doesn't work well. We do have to sort of get everyone on the same page so when they do collaborate, they can collaborate the same way. It isn't, well, I have this 8-year-old computer and you have a brand new 2-year-old computer. That's why you're able to do what you can do. We have to eliminate those sort of barriers. So we have to get everyone sort of on the same page in a technology perspective with what they're bringing back and forth to work, as well as just what's in the classroom. We have to make people feel safe that when they show up to do their teaching that day, that device is going to work. That they're not going to have to sit and wait for the pause to pass on their 9-year-old gateway in order to move forward on the equation. That they know when they turn it on, they plug it in, they can just teach, and they can do what they do best and not have to worry about the technology. And that's not really happening right now. I mean, we can give them the bandwidth, we can give them the connection, we can give them the network, we can give them the tools on the back end, but we're not giving them the tools in their hands right now to do what they need to do.
And the other thing is, I think a bigger barrier to get the technology out is, again, this paradigm shift on how we teach kids. There is a certain, Roger called it organized chaos in this classroom. It's difficult for a lot of people to think about instead of staying up in front and kids sit in rows and everything's quiet. That's the best environment for teaching. Whereas, as you see, that when kids are up and moving around and doing groove, that's a big shift for a lot of people to make. So I see that as that paradigm shift into going more acquired-based learning from the traditional stage on the stage.
In the schools you visited, were there some digital immigrant teachers who maybe were initially reluctant to this and stayed that way, or loved the new way of teaching? I mean, what's the feel out there for immigrants?
Well, there was Berwyn in particular, when we were there, I'm looking around and like, a lot of these girls, girls are like in their 20s and 30s, and then there was one, I was so glad she was there, one special ed teacher who was older, maybe older. So she said, you know what, one of the barriers to get over for people like her was that you didn't have to throw out everything. Like they kind of felt like people were saying, everything you're doing is wrong, and we want you to do it this way. And she said one of the ways to get some of the more reluctant people on board was to convince them that no. This is an enhancement of what you have done. And here are some ways that you can enhance what you're already doing. You can still use what you've done all along and then bring this on. And then also part of that is having the instructional coaches. So this district had tons of instructional coaches. And they were in there helping the teachers, let me try this, I want to try that, can you help me do this? And so it was having the coaching and then also approaching it not like, well, maybe sort of the way we're approaching it here, we're changing everything you're doing, but just to say, this is how we're going to make what we do better and get more kids.
And they're going to be supported in the process.
Another question. The college students who are preparing to be teachers now, what level of technology are they learning for your teacher, say NIU, where we have student teachers?
Well, they're, again, that depends sort of on the teacher, because some of them, the student teacher I had this year, amazing. And she was clearly a native, and she would try anything. But there's not, I think that's something that NIU is still struggling with, is having the technology for their own, for their students so that they can learn how to use it and bring it back, because their professors aren't digital natives. So I think that's a struggle at NIU.
But I asked that question at the Apple meeting, and they said that universities, for the most part, are behind where some high schools are going. They're struggling a lot. So to expect kids to come out next 5 years, they're going to have this classes and teaching on this in colleges, I would say not a lot of that.
But I think you're also going to find that many of them are digital natives themselves, these 21, 22-year-olds, and so it's going to be like second hat to them. They just boom.
But it's not necessarily a part of their formal training.
Yeah.
They have a class, technology and education, but it's
as Cohen brought up, the kids, you give it to them. Well, with the professional development, but you give it to them and they can figure it out, because
they're not afraid.
Yeah, they're not afraid of breaking it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just it was a kind of a follow-up. I do think there's one category missing, and that's a digital geriatric. I'm being a little bit silly, but I'm not. If my father was elderly, we tried to hook him up a little bit with this, and he finally said, "Get the blanky blank thing out of here. I don't want to mess with it," and then wrestled with his remotes for the rest of the day. My point is, I think there are some that just won't make that transition. So part of this will have to be how we handle that. And it may only be 1%, but we talk about 1% all the time.
We have to talk about it, and we have to talk about it. There's going to, if there's one person in the building who's not on board, I guarantee you they're going to be there for parents. Because parents are going to say, hey, my child in this grade, they've got a website set up,
Even still, it'll take something that we'll have to have a plan. Number two, the one real straightforward thing I see here kind of came from Emily's online class. How long does it take us to
it has a C-suite also, but there's also parent resources. So basically what Emily did in her lesson, showing me 3 different algorithms for doing multiplication, that would be on a parent resource. The parent can go in there and say, gosh, I'm trying to help my daughter with her homework, but I don't know how to do that as multiplication. They go to the E-Suite and download that and watch a video. We also have this phenomenal atomic learning unit, and that anybody in the district can access. Board members, administrators, teachers, students, and parents. And the other thing we talked about is, and we have the ability to create our own. And most of them are short, just a few minutes, put them up there to learn. So I think we can get ahead of the curve on this.
Well, my point is too, is I don't know how many people homeschool today. I don't think it's as much as it was a while ago.
Actually, there's a pretty good sized homeschool organization.
I know they're
much better form.
I know they're out there, and I'm thinking if we can augment what they do, we would truly be supplying a service that has a value that they're entitled to, and allow them to educate at home, but basically stay up to standard with the district, sure. And there seems to be, even without all one-on-one stuff, there seems to be some online things we can do to address that. That's much sooner than later. Yes.
My children aren't at Jefferson, but that's a great video that you put together, Emily. And as a parent at Brooks, where I maybe don't know that that's on the Jefferson website, if something could be put on, the school district website instead of just to a school, maybe helpful to the rest of the parents who aren't at Jefferson.
I tell you, Denise came up with a phenomenal vision. So each grade level, there is a resource, no matter what school.
Yeah.
So instead of that link in math being to that particular teacher's website, it actually will go to the entire district where
4th grade math.
All 4th grade math teachers can upload different algorithms, different videos, and the parents can access anywhere.
That would be great, because like I said, I could have definitely used that. But not knowing, that it's there, it's out there, but I don't know it's on the Jefferson website.
What's the next step with the survey? You surveyed, how many responses?
52.
52.
Yeah, what would you want me to tell them?
I'm asking, I'm just curious, what's the next step with the 52 who responded?
Well,
We've told them that we want to support you and we need to see what kind of support we can get. Because we could move forward with all 52, we could pick 5, we could pick 10, but it requires devices and it requires people. So that's why actually coming to you and talking and sharing this information to you is very important to us, so we can figure out where should we go? What direction would you like us to move in?
One of the things that was talked about was in Berwyn, I think, is that they had, I think it was Berwyn, they had a Fab 40, where they had teachers like the 52 who applied and said, hey, we really are interested in this, and we already have an idea how we want it. I know Ann did a presentation on leadership team that was amazing. She already has units set up to actually utilize one-to-one. So if you get those
more to you. But we could cost it out a bit. Trying to get all 56 up to speed tomorrow, next year, and then we can have that, and we can look at various scenarios.
Well, and then there's always the group of teachers who have gotten grants from DEF that have iPads in their classroom if they didn't complete that survey. There's
absolutely
that whole hopefully there.
Doug.
Yes.
The other part, though, that's key is bringing everybody up to an equal level across the board.
Yeah.
From the classroom machine.
Thank you.
Smart.
There's another issue, I think, before we start talking about this, and it's the equity issue. We talked about the elementary schools that have 8-plus-year-old gateways. I work with Brooks as the capacity builder for the Rising Star process. The process manager, who's actually the one doing all the typing, has a couple keys on her computer that stick. So she hits V or something and starts printing out thousands of these. So, again, we've all got nice Dell, everybody at the high school, everybody at Cortland has beautiful Dells. Middle school, Roger, what's the status there?
We don't have desktops. We're still using
Desktops. And so there's the issue with equity in terms of teacher devices, and there's also 40-some rooms that still don't have.
We think it's closer to 60 because there are some of the breakout rooms. Like we know Cortland technically has more smart boards than they have classrooms, but that's not true. They're all in use, and there's actually a couple other breakout rooms that don't have them. And so we think it's right at about 60.
And you'll see in our timeline, that's one of the first things we address is the equity issue. If we don't have the equity issue, then we can't start talking about moving. If I'm sitting there with an 10-year-old gateway, and the person in the next classroom's got a whole set of brand new Chromebooks, that's really concerning.
So I think when we get together again in July, I think we really need to look at a detailed breakdown of not only cost, but savings.
Absolutely.
But the sustainability of this.
Yes.
Because if I was a teacher and seeing how things have maybe been initiated and then not funded,
absolutely,
that'd be a big concern. So I think we have to put that all out there.
I do say
have an understanding of it.
There are
a huge impact on our budget and how we maybe look at different things in our budget.
Absolutely.
It's involved as we know with negotiations as well.
Yes.
And so forth. So there's a lot of different components of the capital.
But there's a lot of money we have in supplemental general state aid set aside for textbook replacement. And eventually, you're working with textbooks, that money will be shifted over as well. There's savings on consumables, and Andrew and I are going to talk about that a little bit. So we'll have that more flushed out in July for you.
What we'd like to see, Doug, one last thing, if it's not out of line with this, is the cost and timeline to implement that online ability for homeschoolers to participate through 428. Now, maybe that's too much of a separate project. If it is, say so.
The one thing we're looking at for the secondary schools is not really a website, it's more of an LMS, which is a learning management system. So we're actually, for the 8th grade science, going to connect them with an LMS, and Edline offers that. So it's like taking your class content and it's all online. Your homework's online, your videos, content, it's all
whatever the terminology is, just because I do think we need to be prepared to address an online charter school coming back. I'd like to be in a position to say, here's what we're going to do, or here's what we're capable of doing, or here's what we've already initiated. Well, we don't require 6 to 9 hours of coaching at home,
Okay, we definitely do that.
For the board comments? Well, I know you took a lot of information against it. We'll be looking online for detailed material.
We'll send these presentations out, and then we'll work up the costs for all this, for all the different phases and the timelines for those.
We will see everybody again tomorrow night. We got back-to-backers. We're at the high school tomorrow, and so we have a motion to adjourn. Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Thank you very much.